Afternoon, I'm Richard Lonsdale, Chairman of the Planning Commission. I call the meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, July 15th, 2025. The time is 4:02 p.m. Staff, please take roll call.
Commissioner Richard Lonsdale.
Here.
Commissioner Bob Howard.
Here.
Commissioner John Graver.
Here.
Commissioner Dana Allen. Here. Commissioner Ann Warman. Here. Commissioner Robert Bailey.
Here.
Commissioner Christopher Lay.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, has everybody had opportunity to read the attached minutes? Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Your second? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
If there any against, say nay. Okay. Approved. Has everyone had an opportunity to read the agenda? And if so, are there conflicts of interest present between any commissioner and an agenda item? Okay. Are there any staff communications?
Couple things. Three things. First of all, welcome to Robert Bailey, our new commissioner. We're working with you. I wanted to mention that we have a consultant that's going to be doing graphics formatting on our comp plan as we update it. As you know, when you look at it now, it's basically all text. We want it to be a little more user friendly and a little more appealing. So they're gonna add photos, graphics, some wayfinders for the online version, so you can easily sort of jump back and forth between chapters and the like. So I sent them a whole batch of photos. If any of you have any cool photos that you think would go well in any one of the chapters that you want to share with us, we could forward it to the consultant, have it included. I know a lot of you participate in the barbecue festival and things like that. You might have some stuff that would fit in well. So we're doing that. And then just the last reminder that August 7th, we're having our planning commission retreat, 10 to 2:30 at the community center. It looks like we're going to have it catered by Casamia. And John Doan will be the facilitator. He's a retired city administrator from Tumwater, among others. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully you'll be available.
Are there any public comments? Moving on to unfinished business. Staff, is there any unfinished business from the last meeting?
Well, I mean, on the agenda, we just have received comments on previously submitted elements, and that's something we can discuss, I guess, as we go forward.
Okay. So new business.
I have comments. I mean, I thought we were going to offer our comments back.
Yeah.
Is that what we do?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
let me say, we were, the way we laid it out, previous, and of course, we're gonna welcome comments tonight, but our ideal is that we submit you the chapters and then we get your comments about a week before the actual meeting, so we have time to look at them and maybe do any sort of research or anything we need to do to be able to respond. But of course, we'll take comments at any time. But I guess, going forward, it would work a lot better if we could get written comments in advance of the meeting so that we can prepare.
Yeah,
Either way.
Yeah, sorry, my understanding was that talking about the comments was that we were going to cover that under new business.
We can do it in either way. I mean, I'm flexible.
That was why I moved on, so.
I just wanted the opportunity to provide some comments.
Sure.
For sure.
I provided written comments in the past, but was given some answers that didn't help as much as I wanted. So I've got some more questions.
Okay.
For us. This has to do with the land use. Last time I was directed out of housing into land use for our zoning, and our zoning codes in order to see if there is a way that we've expressed the lower cost housing options as well as the higher density options. I say clarified, where are those in our zoning codes? And what I came up with was that, yes, we do have what's called an R16 as a zoning code that is high density. But we have very, very few parcels or plots on our zoning map that are R16. So what I was looking for is clarification as to why we do allow high density multifamily in other zones such as C1 behind Walmart per se. And yet it's not clear to me how that's actually specified in our zoning. And finally, my question. I'd like to be able to have a very clear definition of each of the zones and to be able to show how they map to our comprehensive plan directions that we're setting. Because I know that we're going to be asked to present to the public and to explain how our zones are changing or how the proposals in our comprehensive plan map to the zone and the zones that are coming into our, if the properties that are being annexed, how they will be applied as well. So rather than going through all the details right now, one idea that I would offer is maybe one of the segments of our retreat could be focused on the specific zones and how those are defined and how they map to what's in our comprehensive plan. That's a suggestion. Because even if I've been on this 20 years and I'm having difficulty finding where they map, such as we're using moderate density residential in our comprehensive plan. And then we have median density R6. Well, is median the same thing as moderate? Or do we need to use two different words? I mean, we're not using the same language in our zone definitions as we are in our comprehensive plan. But the same with high density. High density residential seems to occur sometimes in C1. But how does that happen? It must be that we have some specifications in our zoning that bring that together.
Yeah, I mean, it is more or less spelled out. So in the comp plan, it's going to be more general. In the zoning code, it is more or less spelled out. So in the C1, for example, we allow mixed use developments, and that's where you get into your higher density residential. So it's listed as an allowed use. And then it references another section of our code that specifies exactly what you can do in mixed use. So we can go through those zones and sort of see how they tie back to the general goals.
I think it would be very helpful because in prior years, when we were to present our comp plan to the public, it was the planners here that were the ones that needed to do a lot of the talking, the explaining to the general public. And if we don't have our hands on all the detailed information, it's awfully difficult for us to be able to say, oh, what you're looking at is a special case under commercial or multi-use or for mixed use.
And that would be a planner's job to explain that. I would not expect the planning commission to have to
We
explain.
did in the past. We had to be, I mean, there were people there that attended who were expecting us to know. and to be able to explain it. I think, John, you've run into that as well. So it's really
Well,
helpful.
you're talking about knowing the zoning code as opposed to knowing what we're doing in our comp plan.
Well, you need to know both, because if you're gonna explain what's going on in the comp plan and how it maps to changes in the zoning or to how it affects the zoning, you've gotta know both. And I was having trouble putting all of them together because the language was inconsistent. Anyway, but I thought maybe just a little tutorial session.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll talk to the consultant because he has kind of mapped out an agenda, but I'm sure that we can do it in either that format or some other, but if you're talking about just going back into our zones to kind of map back to the comp plan, how this particular zone achieves a certain level of density or a certain type of housing and what the options are. Because, for example, affordable housing can be accomplished in pretty much all of our zones, depending on the type of housing you're looking at. So even in the single family residential zones, you can have accessory dwelling units that could qualify as count toward affordable housing, hopefully. We've been seeing them rent for a lot higher than we would like, but they could.
I'm trying to make-
I mean, we could go do something like that and just sort of say this, and also Andrew might have a little bit to say about this, because when we did the land capacity analysis, which was one of the documents, it's sort of the background that we, I think, submitted with the housing chapter, just as a supporting document. TRPC went through and did that exercise to show how in each of the zones, we would have a certain number of acres that, based on what we allow in our zones, could accomplish a certain number of units of affordable housing. Of course, those are all educated guesses, but it is a little bit of a map as to how the assumptions that went into that.
That would be helpful because, again, when we're before the public, either in our public meeting or other times when we're caught on the street and having to explain what's what, it's always helpful to have just, a little chart, diagram, or, the analysis to be able to draw on. And at least I would appreciate it. Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. So
Quickly on the house, sorry.
Let's make sure we're through with the agenda.
Yeah. Okay, so we're on new business now, or?
I just want to touch base on the housing element. One, I want to thank Commissioner Allen for her comments and review, but also we had a little bit of an update. We asked TRPC to reevaluate our land capacity analysis with three kind of key factors. One is a rezone of approximately 10 acres from industrial to R16. That property currently is in the urban growth area, but will be in it. Well, we're looking to have it annexed in the near term. So that would add a significant amount of units. The annexation as a whole, I believe it is 1,200 acres, roughly 1,200 acres of annexation coming in from the urban growth area. So we reconsidered that, and we also reconsidered our commercial zoning, C1, C2, and C3, which all allow mixed use. And the goal and the requirement from the state was plan for and accommodate the housing that you need. And we looked at it the first time and we somewhat disagreed with the findings of the 2,395, a deficit of 2,395. So we worked with TRPC and I think gave them a better educated guess on the units that we could accommodate. So it was a change. So now we have a surplus of 1,562 units, and then a total capacity of 6,732 units, which was compared to the previous estimate was 2,775. So with those mixed use developments that we're seeing, which are a minimum density of 16 units an acre, and they don't have a maximum density, we anticipate seeing a lot more land being used for maintenance. It's also, available for residential. But that was the big update in the housing element. I printed off the whole memo from TRPC, just so if you want to familiarize yourself with it more than just my explanation. But yeah, happy to answer any questions at any time on it.
Is that whole, your memo from TRPC is enclosed in the.
I handed it out as a separate, a little bit of a separate document.
Just gave it to us. It says R14, it should be R16, right? On the table, okay, just making sure.
Just on a separate, dealing with housing and just kind of on a separate note. Now, you'd mentioned about the annexation that, as far as I know, it's supposed to happen in August. But now, are the residents within the UGA going to be notified of the annexation that's coming up, the changes that are going to occur?
Yeah, I'll give you a little update on it. So we do plan to annex about 1,200 acres. It's 330 some parcels. If you look at the city limits right now, our city limits looks kind of like a puzzle piece, all kinds of jagged edges. So the annexation would propose to take in 8 different areas of the urban growth area, and when we're done, the city will look more like an oval. We do plan to mail out to every single property owner at the right time. And we're not planning to annex in August. I'm not sure. We may have said that at some time, but we're working with the county. The annexation process we're using is called the local agreement method. And so it's something where we have to walk lockstep with the county. We're both required to approve an interlocal agreement. We both have to hold either a joint or a separate hearing on it. I can't predict as, well as I'd like to be able to, the county's timeline and schedule on this. I contact them regularly, but I'm not exactly sure when their commissioners are going to act on some of this stuff. But anyway, yes, we will notify everybody. This is, for some people, annexations can be tough sometimes. Some people are really in favor of it. We get a lot of contact from the community, from various property owners who are anxious to be annexed. There are some who are not going to want to be annexed because their zoning will change. It's going to go from 1 to 5 units per acre to anything from 4 units to 16 units to commercial. But we will, when we notify them by mail, it'll be well before we have any public hearings, and we will include a map showing the parcels that we're annexing and what their future zoning will be. So they'll be well informed in advance of any official actions that are taken.
Thank you. Okay, so are we still covering under new business? We got the different elements.
If there are any other comments or anything that you want us to take in from the items we've submitted, yes, and if not, no, but we're always still open to any written comments you want to send our way.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments under the information for new business under that was sent out?
That was sent out? You mean it's
Yeah.
part of the agenda?
yeah.
So there,
Right, yeah.
I just got back.
Okay. Actually, I've got just one quick, there was a policy listed under capital facilities, policy 5.4 regarding prohibiting individual exempt wells. And I was wondering if that was intended to actually be under capital facilities or if there was something that was missed. I noticed going through some of these that the numbers were jumping around. So I didn't know if that particular regarding the exempt wells and water service was supposed to go under capital facilities or not.
I'm just gonna have to take that as a note to go back and talk to Pat about that.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll clarify with them whether that's the right place for that to be or at all.
And my other comment was, you had mentioned about the a consultant being hired for the graphics and formatting. So going through, looking at primarily looking at the utility portion that I was looking at the verbal part on the essential public facilities and then also under utilities. And then I noticed that under that part actually was a more graphic driven further in the publication and where it actually said the same thing. So I was assuming that the text portion kind of going into kind of the more graphic type thing that you're talking about. So, but is that kind of what is going to happen? Is that everything that's listed under all the text parts is going to be converted? I mean, like you said, with the pictures and stuff, but it had all the, seems like it was more the climate.
Yeah, because the climate one is a brand new chapter that the consultant's putting together. It's gonna look a little different than what we see with the rest of them. So that's not a pre-existing format.
Right.
I can't say that when we get done, because we just hired, they were working on the common stuff before we hired them to work on the graphic stuff. So I don't know exactly what it's gonna look like yet. Right now, all we've received are, basic mock-up ideas with example photographs that aren't even necessarily like, there's a picture of Rainier, but it's not the Rainier of Yelm, the view of Rainier that you would see from Yelm, for example. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just I'm sorry, I guess my whole thing was that we had one part that was text and then the verbatim part later on in the document that we were provided, but it had, kind of the where it kind of related to the portions of the climate. So there was exact same things mentioned
In
two different times,
two different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
We'll look at that. Yeah, I'll just make a note of that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, my original vision was not that we were repeating text or leading text, but just adding context with photographs. So,
And actually too, kind of piggybacking on something I think Ann mentioned last month about referencing, I think it would have to deal with the population.
The population.
That making maybe to have the chapters that reference information to kind of have them cross reference, and then that way it's easier to, when you're looking at one thing, you can go back over here and just kind of double check it, because like she was saying, because I think you were saying that the population numbers were different.
Populations are in land use, but the number of houses required are in housing. And it's difficult to be able to say, why do we need so many more houses, until you look at the population numbers that are in a whole different section.
Yeah, I mean,
Just,
well, I mean, we might be able to do lengths like that. That's not currently in the scope of work that they have, but we do have the wayfinders that we're adding. In the land use, we do actually have a table that shows both population and housing needs. It's just not broken down because it's broken down in the housing.
I do understand that, going through and trying to reference, cross-reference and stuff like that is, kind of a beast in itself. So, but
We can at a minimum, we can look to see, like, when we are in certain sections, we could have an asterisk below a table to say, for further information, go to land use page 40.
that would be
Or
perfect.
something like that.
That would be, I think.
may I suggest, is it necessary to keep the population numbers in only one place?
No, I mean, we can always add to the minimum requirements of the chapter. We can't subtract, so the stuff that's in land use, that population housing are required to be there. But that doesn't mean that we can't have numbers in other sections if you feel it would elucidate what you're reading in that particular section.
I think that's what we both experienced, is that we were looking for the rationale, which is based on population growth. And you don't get to it until you get to,
Yeah, unfortunately, and some of that is, so in the actual reading of the comp plan, and this doesn't negate your comment at all, because I think, yeah, it could be good to have these cross references, but in the actual comp plan, the very first chapter will be land use and the second one will be housing. The way these chapters rolled out was housing and then land use, and so I know that caused confusion. Yeah.
because I was looking, that's why I was looking for.
Yeah.
And just to clarify too, when you were talking about the graphic designer who was also able to hyperlink certain things, if it's a digital comp plan, they'll be able to actually link to the housing numbers, correct? So they could see, even though they're in, say for instance, chapter 1, the numbers are in chapter 6, they'll be able to actually see, they'll be able to click that link to say, oh, hey, I want to see that data specifically for that.
I'm sure it's possible. I mean, right now, that wasn't in their scope for what we're doing. What they are doing is for the wayfinders is just to easily navigate yourself from one chapter to another.
Okay.
But not necessarily one specific reference to another.
Okay.
I'm not saying we can't do that. I mean, it's an idea that I'll take back to them. It's just how much more work would be involved for them and how much cross-referencing would we need to do? It may be something pretty simple. I mean, because some of this, you know, especially between land use, housing, and maybe transportation, it could be really useful to have those kinds of cross links. We're probably not going to need those cross links for utilities, essential public facilities, you know, and some other chapters. So we'll look into that. Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
I don't wanna.
Go for it. Go for it.
Go for it. Okay, this goes back to economic development item, and that is, reading recently about some of the changes that are being made in some of the areas that are surrounding Seattle. And the objective of their changes to their zoning and such had to do with allowing more businesses to be spread among communities within the area so that they have walkable cities rather than everything where you have to drive to a commercial center. And in our economic development section, we are specifically saying to have people always always put your business in the commercial center. So recognizing that there are cities that are becoming much more concerned with being able to provide, say, a local shop or a local, whether it's a small cafe or something like that, that's more distributed. I think we may want to consider something a bit different than saying, let's make sure that everybody drives to the middle of town.
Sure.
That requires a lot of parking.
I mean, I guess I would, and I'm open to anything, especially when it comes to economic development. So, I mean, we did reach out to the chamber, you know, try to reach out to the folks who are really focused on that kind of stuff. That's one of the areas in the comp plan where, coming from just the urban land use planning perspective, I may not be the one to provide the best guidance for what's best for economic development. But I mean, if you have some example goals or policies or recommendations that you want to forward to us, we'll certainly look at it and see about including it. I mean, we do have, and maybe this should be better reflected in the economic development chapter, but we've got a really unique zone called the Master Plan Community Zone, which is its own sort of little economic development zone in a way, because it is supposed to be what you're describing, more or less a self-contained community that has businesses and services and all that. And gosh, you know, we still got 1,200 acres of that to go. So
And including along those lines. Wasn't that long ago? A couple of years ago, we had a plan, or there was a beginning of a plan to have a building that would be a a business incubator building that people would rent out desk space and be able to work from, not from home, but from a locale in town where they could walk to lunch and there'd be more of a vibrant community, business community. And I didn't see any reference of that in our economic plan. And I'm just wondering what happened. It disappeared from, most of the other colleagues here. John was around and I was around. And it was very go, we're gonna do this. We're gonna.
And then kind of.
Kind of fizzled somewhere,
Yeah.
but I'd like.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, because it was kind of before my time, but I could ask Cody. But yeah, I mean, once again, I mean, that's where, any goals or those kinds of things, if you.
You want
your
us to
comments on
submit-
it, we'll look at seeing how we can incorporate it.
Then it's. As you can see, I'm more accustomed to being able to just talk about ideas and throw them out rather than write them up, but I will write up that one.
Yeah, just shoot me an email.
Here, and I don't see.
Or also, I'm gonna say this to all of you, and Commissioner Allen did today, came by the office, we walked through comments and everything, and I'm open to doing that with any of you at any time. And even if that is just a conversation where we can get on the computer and I can make some notes or whatever. I know that everybody's got their own schedules, but we can meet in that way if you think it would be productive to just come into the office, and I may either Andrew or Clayton be my technology guy and get things pulled up on the screen, and then we go to town, so.
That's all I had. I had.
Sure now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kind of piggybacking, a little bit on what Ann was saying is that I believe it was there was a policy under, transportation section that had talked about, or maybe it was a goal about focusing on transportation and jobs in Yelm to try to focus, to decrease the amount of, greenhouse gases and carbon. But it specifically mentioned about jobs in Yelm, or trying to expand jobs in Yelm. So if we had something like the incubator, or, something along that line, to where, because during the environmental portion, I mean, well, what was it, 6% of the city's population travels an hour and a half away to work. So, I mean, if we could try to do something to where we could have more employment within the city limits, to try to keep people here, or have walking neighborhoods, and that would, I think, is kind of where that one policy or goal under the transportation section was, that I saw referring to the trying to decrease the transportation, but improve the number of jobs in Yelm. So I don't know if that's the same thing or not, but
No, we haven't done the transportation chapter yet, so it should be.
well, it was under the
Yeah, it's.
portion that was on climate, yeah. So.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll look at that. I mean, just to. Ann's comment about I guess up around Seattle, and looking at sort of. Allowing for a little bit more diversity in neighborhoods for business opportunities. There are a lot of benefits in that. It's a great article about non-conforming uses being the most charming parts of a lot of neighborhoods. Mom and pop stores that wouldn't be allowed now, or like certainly, so I get that.
Okay, any additional comments from any of the commissioners?
I have a question about the climate chapter. Is in the final, I mean, I understand this is draft, but just the formatting of it, are these tags, the color coded tags, gonna be included as part of planning?
We're still playing around with how it's gonna ultimately turn out. So for example, we have talked to the consultant about throughout the document, having, I don't know if they're emojis or icons or what.
Tags.
But, different goals and policies, how they would fulfill the requirements of certain things under the Growth Management Act.
Oh,
Like multimodal transportation, goes toward affordable housing, this goes toward reducing greenhouse gases, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
We're still working on that piece of it.
and then, they provided the list of existing policies and the ones that are climate related. Is that just for our reference, or is that going to be actually part of the plan? Like, they're not gonna be duplicated again as part of climate chapter, or?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that. Clayton, do you have any comments on that?
Could you state the question again?
So the climate chapter that was provided to us, the draft, I should say, had the climate chapter presumably, and at the end had existing policies and talked about the other chapters like environmental protection and critical areas. It said which policies, I guess, have those little tags, the little blue, yellow and green tags.
Yeah, referring back to other parts of the comp plan.
So
Yes, yes.
is that just for a reference?
That is still kind of up in the air. Like I said, I don't, it depends on if we identify policies with the emojis, we may not then list them again at the end of the chapter to show where they occur. So, not sure yet. Is that a fair answer? Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so moving on, public hearing, there's none. Are there any subcommittee reports?
Well, we did skip over new business.
Oh. I thought that was what we were talking about. Okay.
Sorry. Well, and really this won't take any time at all. I just wanted.
Yeah, well, yeah, because between the unfinished business. Okay.
So Clayton is in the lead on these three elements that were submitted to you with this packet. So we're gonna follow the same process next month when we meet. These will be up for discussion. Hopefully, if you do have comments, like I said, you can get them to us before then, writing, come by the office, however you want to do it. But these are the three things that we will be discussing next month. We hope that in your packet next month, to go forward to the month after that, we hope to have the transportation chapter that's being done by a consultant, so I can't be fully committal on that. Okay, that will take to get it to us in that time frame. Possibly, I hope the parks chapter, I know Ann knows that the Parks Committee is kind of looking at that right now. And the environment and critical areas chapter. Once we do those three, we will have done all the chapters for our first round.
Can I ask if, is there a timeline on when you have to have your comp plan completed?
It's supposed to be completed by December 30th of this year. We plan to send a draft to Commerce by October because they have a mandatory review period to make sure it complies with GMA. I will say even the drafts we've done right now, I've already submitted to Commerce, not as, final products, but for reimbursement on the grant we got from them. And we've been fully reimbursed for everything because they do, as long as they comply with what they need to comply with, they'll reimburse us. So we've actually gotten our grant fully reimbursed already.
There is a comprehensive schedule. I don't know if Hazel sent that in the paperwork or not, but if not, let me know. I can send that. Gives you what we're supposed to do. Well, excellent, thank you.
Yeah, I think Hazel gave you a link to all the previous, not all, but several months previous packets, right? So you'll find a schedule in there.
It's got to dig deeper. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything further on new
No,
business?
that's it. I just give you a heads up of what's coming and
Okay, There's no scheduled public hearing, any subcommittee reports?
Well, this is not a subcommittee report. We have no subcommittee reporting yet. I don't know, when's our next meeting? September, yeah. We shut down for the summer. Anyway, but it was very interesting that the news had, because of all the wildfires and because of all the cities that have taken out so many trees when doing, growth, that now they're trying something new. It's like they're going to incorporate putting trees in whenever developer, has to, take trees out. In other words, something that we've been doing for how long? These cities are now starting to say, oh, we have to put this into our laws, that they're going to have to start putting trees in, like we have every 35 feet. I mean, and I was astounded that, like I say, we've been doing this for, can't even think how about 15, 20 years. Yeah. And they're just, oh, this is something new we're gonna do. And I'm thinking, and this is all up in Seattle area and everything else. I'm thinking, man, I guess we're just that far ahead.
As far as tree board's concerned, for the Arbor Day celebration next year, Lynn Roy, the recreation coordinator for the city of Yelm, is going to take a much bigger hand in planning the Arbor Day celebration. She's got quite a few ideas, so it'll probably look very different next year. I felt like it was successful doing it in the evening because we have the lack of public school transportation at this point.
Yeah.
So I think we did really well this last year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of changes we'll implement this year.
Well, my report, you heard, is that the Parks Board is reviewing the element. Parks element. And we'll be getting that back to Cody before our next meeting. And we've already added to our agenda in the Parks Advisory meetings that we're going to do the detail parks plan. Because what you get in the parks element is the goals and the policies. But in order to be able to go for grants to actually have parks built or buy parks land, that we may need. We need a detailed parks plan. The last one was done in 2017. And we need to update that. And that's on our agenda for August to start that process. And that goes into details such as things that have been thrown out. There's need for specific pickleball courts and basketball courts in pocket parks in town. And there's also a need for a significant parks plan for what would be happening over in a large piece of property that's in that direction. But so if any of you have ideas and or wishes for what you're looking for, not just in parks goals, but in specifics of parks, as we move forward from the parks plan that we've been so far successfully implemented, everything that's in the 2017 one. Welcome your feedback.
Anything further? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
No second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Okay, meeting is adjourned at 4:46 p.m.